Chapter 76. Trap. Dean and Sam found them in the basement. The real kids. Weak, scared, but alive. They moved fast, breaking them out and getting them above ground before anything else could go wrong. By the time they stepped outside, the fire had already taken hold of the mother changeling. The creature's death hit the others instantly. Wherever they were, whatever houses they were hiding in, the copies started to burn out, the false forms collapsing as the link snapped. Lisa saw it happen. She stood frozen, watching the thing that looked like her son twist and burn, the illusion breaking apart into something inhuman. Panic hit her hard, confusion right behind it, and then Dean stepped in, holding the real Ben as he brought him back to her. She looked from one to the other, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. "Lisa, listen to me," Dean said, keeping his voice steady. "That wasn't your kid. Something took him, replaced him. This is the real Ben." She didn't understand everything, but she understood enough. She pulled Ben close and didn't let go. Dean stepped back, giving them space. Not long after, they regrouped. Sam and Henry were already moving, tired, the weight of the day catching up now that it was over. They got the kids back where they needed to be. Henry exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "We should go. Before cops start asking questions we don't feel like answering." Sam nodded. "This is going to get messy fast." Dean took one last look toward Lisa's house, then turned away. "Let's move." They didn't wait around. The next day, they stopped at a gas station somewhere along the highway, the kind that hadn't changed in 20 years. Dean pulled up to the pump while Sam stepped out to fill the tank. Henry headed inside, still carrying the tail end of last night's exhaustion. His body had healed, but everything felt just a little slower than usual. He pushed into the restroom, splashed water on his face, and stayed there a moment longer than needed. When he was done, he reached for the door. The moment his hand touched the handle, something burned. Not heat, sharper than that, like something cutting through him rather than on him. Henry yanked his hand back. "What the?" He looked down. A black marking spread across the metal handle, like something scorching it from the inside out. Flickered, then white, blinding white. It swallowed everything. When Henry opened his eyes, he wasn't in the gas station anymore. He was standing in a large underground space, air cold and still. Metal structures lined the walls. Pipes, frames, things bolted together in ways that didn't look random. Not abandoned, but not right either. Felt wrong. Henry turned slowly, senses sharpening despite the confusion. "Okay," he muttered. "Where the hell am I?" No answer, but there was a sound behind him. A shift, subtle. He turned. A man stood there, or something that looked like one. It didn't move at first, just watched him. Then slowly its mouth opened. Too wide. Rows of sharp, uneven teeth, packed close together like a piranha's. Henry's stance shifted immediately. "Yeah," he said quietly, eyes locked on it. Definitely not a gas station. The thing moved first. It lunged straight at him, fast and animalistic, jaws opening wider as it closed the distance. Henry stepped aside at the last second, one hand snapping up to catch its head mid-motion. His grip locked in, and with a sharp twist he turned. The neck snapped. Violent. Not clean. The body dropped. Henry didn't look down, because he heard it. More movement. More than one. A low chorus of hisses and shifting footsteps echoed through the space, rising from deeper inside. His expression tightened. "Great," he muttered. "Vampire nest." Figures emerged from the shadows. Not one. Not two. Dozens. Eyes catching the dim light, teeth flashing as they closed in. Henry ran. Too many to take head on, not in this condition. Footsteps pounded behind him, fast and relentless. One lunged from the side. He grabbed a metal rod off the wall without slowing, pivoted sharply, and swung. It crashed into the first vampire's face and sent it flying back into the others. He didn't stop. Another came in from the front. He drove the rod forward, the impact cracking hard against bone as ether mode flickered through his movements, just enough to stagger it. Space. That's all he needed. He pushed forward, weaving through the structure, buying seconds wherever he could as the sound of pursuit closed in behind him. After a while, the noise died down. Henry sat on one of the bodies, using it more like a chair than anything else. The concrete around him was littered with broken forms. Faces smashed in, skulls caved, limbs bent wrong. The hammer was still in his hand, coated in thick, dark blood that wasn't his. He wiped some off his cheek with the back of his wrist and exhaled slowly. This wasn't random, he muttered, looking around the space. He leaned forward, resting the hammer across his knees. Someone dropped me straight into a vampire nest. He said it quietly, working through it. That doesn't just happen. His jaw tightened. Trap. Because the way it happened, the moment his hand touched that handle, the pull, the shift, it wasn't luck. Magic. Henry frowned, running through possibilities. Which, maybe, they're the only ones who mess with space like that. He paused, then shook his head. No, I haven't pissed off any witch. Not enough for this. Chapter 77. Wendigo 1. He stepped out of the dark corridor slowly, boots scraping against concrete as the space opened up around him. Wider, quieter. Henry paused at the edge, eyes adjusting. Storage area, old factory from the looks of it. Metal racks lined the walls, some collapsed, others standing with rusted frames. Broken crates, scattered debris, dust thick enough that nobody had walked through here in years. His hand went to his pocket out of habit, pulling out his phone. He flipped it open. The top half came loose in his hand. Screen cracked and dead from the earlier fight. Henry stared at it for a second, then dropped the broken piece back into his palm. No signal, no phone, he said under his breath, slipping it back into his pocket. Perfect. He wandered for a bit, trying to get a read on where he was. It didn't help. The factory gave way to nothing useful. More concrete, more rust, and eventually a set of broken doors opening up to Treeline on every side. Dense, dark woods that all looked the same no matter which direction he faced. He stood at the edge, hands on his hips. Middle of nowhere, he said flatly. Fantastic. He turned back toward the factory, then toward the trees, weighing his options. Neither was great. Vampire nest, abandoned factory, woods that go nowhere, he muttered. Whoever did this really committed to the bit. On the other side, Dean leaned against the Impala, arms crossed, glancing toward the gas station. He's been in there 15 minutes. Sam looked up from the map spread across the hood. You think he's okay? I figured bad stomach, Dean said. Man ate whatever that diner was serving last night. Sam folded the map and headed inside without another word. He pushed through the restroom door, took one look around. Empty. He stepped closer to the door handle, and that's when he saw it. Burn marks, black and jagged, spreading across the metal like something had scorched it from the inside out. Dean, he called out. Dean appeared in the doorway a second later, eyes dropping straight to the handle. His jaw tightened. Okay, he said. That's not a stomach thing. Sam pulled out his phone and took a few shots of the handle, getting close enough to catch the detail of the markings. Dean watched from the doorway. What is that? Some kind of sigil? Don't know, Sam said, already moving. But Bobby might. They stepped outside and Sam dialed, putting it on speaker as it rang twice. Yeah. Bobby, it's Sam. Henry's missing. Went into a gas station restroom 15 minutes ago and never came out. There are burn marks on the door handle, black, spreading outward from the center like something scorched it from the inside. Burn marks, Bobby repeated, pages turning. Nothing else? No sulfur, no EMF. Nothing, Sam said. Just the marks. Dean leaned against the Impala, arms crossed. Bobby saying anything? Sam held up a hand. More pages. Bobby went quiet for a long moment. Described the pattern. Jagged, branching outward from where his hand would have been. Another pause, heavier this time. Where exactly are you boys? By the time Henry gave up on finding anything useful, the light was already gone. He made camp at the base of a tree, a small fire burning in front of him. He dug through his pockets and came up with a few strips of tree bark, slightly bitter but edible enough. He chewed slowly, without enthusiasm, staring into the flames. The woods were dead quiet. No crickets, no rustling, no wind moving through branches. Henry paused mid-chew, looking out into the dark between the trees. Forests were never this silent. There was always something, insects at minimum. He'd hunted in enough of them to know that. But this place had nothing moving in it, nothing breathing, nothing calling from the dark. Not a single animal. He looked back at the fire, still chewing. What kind of forest has no animals? He muttered. Then he heard it. A sound from somewhere in the dark. Faint at first, then clearer, help me, dragged out and desperate, the kind of voice that had been screaming for a long time before it got quiet. Henry's jaw stopped moving. He stared into the treeline, head tilted slightly, listening hard. Came again from the same direction. Same words. Same tone. Too clean for something genuinely lost and scared in the dark. Henry slowly set down the bark. Yeah, he said under his breath. That's definitely not human. He didn't move toward it. That was the first instinct and he trusted it. Whatever was out there wanted him to move toward it, wanted him on his feet and away from the fire and walking blind into the dark between the trees. That was the whole point of the sound. He picked the bark back up and kept chewing. The voice came again. Same direction, same desperate pull to it. Help me stretched out like something that had learned the words without understanding what they meant. Henry stared into the flames. Not my first time in the woods, he said quietly. He reached for a thick branch near his feet, the end already catching the edge of the fire's light. He held it there until it caught, then stood slowly, impromptu torch in one hand. He didn't go toward the sound. He went parallel to it, wide and careful, keeping the fire at his back as long as he could. Chapter 78. Wendigo, 2. As he scanned the tree-line, torch held steady, his mind was already working through it. Woods with no animals. A voice mimicking human distress. There was only one thing that hunted like this. Wendigo. He knew the history. They weren't born monsters, they were people once. Survivors, most of them. Someone stranded in the dead of winter with nothing left and a choice that couldn't be taken back. Eating human flesh to stay alive, and then eating it again and again until whatever was human about them burned away completely and something else took its place. The price for that survival was steep. Immortality, strength that had no business existing in anything that walked on two legs, speed that made them nearly impossible to outrun. Powers stacked on top of powers, all of it paid for by what they'd given up. He turned slowly, keeping his back away from the dark. Then something moved above him, not on the ground, in the trees. A crawling sound, wet and deliberate, shifting through the branches overhead. Henry looked up a half-second too late. A wooden spear came down fast and drove straight through his hand, pinning it mid-air. HHH, FFA. He ripped it out through gritted teeth, hand pouring blood, and spun. The Wendigo had already landed behind him. Henry drove the spear straight into it without thinking. The Wendigo caught it bare-handed, all that inhuman strength wrapping around the wood and stopping it dead like it was nothing. It screamed straight into his face. Through hot rancid breath, rows of ruined teeth inches away, then shoved him hard enough to send him crashing into a tree trunk. Henry hit the bark, bounced off, and barely kept his feet. The Wendigo ran. Oh no, you don't! Henry pushed off the tree and went after it, crashing through the undergrowth, blood dripping from his hand. He reached into his coat mid-sprint and ripped out the angel's blade. The Wendigo ahead suddenly stopped, turned, screamed again skre but different this time, could see the blade. Whatever passed for instinct in that thing was telling it something. Henry kept moving toward it anyway. Yeah, he said, breathing hard, blade up, run. Then something shifted in him. His hair began to glow, pale light bleeding through it like current running through wire. Markings spread across his face and down his neck, circuit-like patterns branching across his skin, every line burning bright. The Wendigo faltered. Phase step. Henry disappeared, gone in a single instant, reappearing directly in front of the Wendigo with a knee already driving up for its throat. The Wendigo dropped into a crouch at the last second, the strike grazing its jaw instead of crushing its windpipe, but Henry was already moving. His leg swung hard, catching the Wendigo in the ribs with enough force to lift it off the ground. It hit a tree trunk with a crack that echoed through the dead forest, bark splintering on impact, and dropped. Henry stood over it, markings still burning, angel blade in his bleeding hand. The Wendigo looked up at him. For the first time since this started, it didn't scream. The Wendigo scrambled upright and launched a cluster of needle-like quills straight at him. They hit, every single one of them, and dropped straight to the floor. Henry looked down at them, then back up, the circuit markings still burning across his skin. You know, he said, almost conversational. In this state, it's pretty hard to pierce my skin with normal means. The glow around his fist deepened. Ether burst. He launched himself forward, crossing the distance in an instant, fist driving straight into the Wendigo's gut with everything behind it. Revenant impact triggered. The impact detonated. Blinding white light exploded outward from the point of contact. A shockwave of force and heat that tore through the surrounding trees, stripping bark, splitting trunks, the sheer pressure of it flattening the undergrowth in every direction. The forest lit up like daylight for a full 3 seconds. The Wendigo caught it all at point-blank range. Came apart in that light. Not torn, Not burned, dissolved. The force eating through it from the inside out. Centuries of twisted survival unraveling in an instant until there was nothing left but dust catching the fading glow. Silence rushed back in. Henry stood in the wreckage of the treeline, breathing steady, markings dimming slowly across his skin. Revenant impact is something else, Henry muttered, flexing his hand. 10% trigger chance, but hits harder than ether burst. Worth it every time. Wendigo eliminated. 10 supernatural points gained. Rare gotcha obtained. Henry blinked. Rare gotcha. A slow smile. Finally. Lately the wheel had been insulting him personally. Consumables, equipment, more consumables. Not a single ability that actually built on his power. He'd been starting to wonder if the system had a grudge. The wheel spun, slowed, stopped. Energy manifestation unlocked. Solidify personal energy into physical form. Note. Requires unique energy source to function. Wow, Henry said flatly. This would be completely useless if I didn't have ether energy. He held out his left arm anyway and focused, imagining weight, imagining form. The ether responded immediately. Blue and red energy flared up his forearm, coiling tight, compressing layer by layer until solid armor began materializing out of nothing, piece by piece, real enough to feel the weight of. He turned his arm slowly, looking it over. Okay, he said. That's actually good. Chapter 79, Beggar. 2 days later, Henry walked out of the woods. He looked like something the forest had chewed up and spat out. Dirt caked into every crease, clothes torn, hair a disaster, hands still wrapped in a strip of his own shirt from where the spear went through. He found a ranger station at the tree line and didn't even hesitate. "Excuse me," he said to the ranger sitting outside. "Where am I?" The ranger looked him over slowly, taking in the full picture. He'd seen this type before. Social media influencers who thought wandering into dense forest alone made for interesting content, then crawled back out 3 days later looking like something dragged in by a cat, dignity completely gone. "Blackwater Ridge," he said. "Lost Creek, Wisconsin." Henry stared at him. "Wisconsin. That's what I said." He'd been teleported from Indiana to Wisconsin, dumped into a vampire nest, dragged through an abandoned factory, stranded in a dead forest for 2 days eating tree bark, hunted by a Wendigo, and the whole time he'd been in a completely different state without knowing it. 2 days of tree bark and dirt for this. He turned back to the ranger. "Is there a phone I can use?" The ranger jerked his thumb toward the station door. Inside, on the desk. Henry walked in, picked up the phone, and dialed Dean's number from memory. It rang 4 times. "You've reached Dean Winchester. Leave a message." Henry hung up and dialed Sam. "This is Sam. Leave a..." Hung up. He stood there for a moment, then tried another number. A contact Dean had made a few months back. No answer. Tried another. Nothing. He was running out of numbers he actually had memorized when he dialed a third one and the line finally clicked. "Yeah. Who's this?" Henry closed his eyes briefly. "Dean. It's Henry." Dead silence for a half second. Then Henry. More movement. Muffled. Dean pulling the phone away. "Sam. It's Henry." Then back, louder. "Where the hell have you been?" 2 days, man. 2 days. "Wisconsin," Henry said. "Wisconsin. Someone teleported me from that gas station straight into a vampire nest. Then an abandoned factory. Then dropped me in a forest with a Wendigo for 2 days with no phone and no food." Another pause. "Did you just say Wendigo?" "I did. Are you okay?" "I look like a homeless person," Henry said. "So, relatively speaking. Can you guys come and get me?" Dean said, and Henry already didn't like where this was going. "Someone called my dad's old number. Said something about his cell being broken into. I gotta go check it out, but don't worry. Sam will come pick you up." Henry was quiet for a second. "Dean. Yeah. If that is a bullshit reason, I will come there and smack you in the nuts. It's a legitimate lead. I ate tree bark for 2 days. Sam will be there in a few hours," Dean said quickly. "Stay near the ranger station." The line went dead. Henry stood there holding the phone, then set it down and looked at the ranger, who had very obviously been listening from the doorway the entire time. "Any chance you have food here?" The ranger looked at him the way someone looks at a person who has just asked a very stupid question. Henry held up his good hand. "Right? Forest Ranger Station, not a restaurant." Still, there was an old vending machine in the corner. He checked his pockets. Somehow, against all odds, A crumpled $10 bill had survived 2 days in the woods with him. He smoothed it out against his thigh and fed it into the vending machine. He stared at the options for a second, then hit the button for a Coke. The can dropped with a thunk. He grabbed it, cracked it open, and drank half of it in one go without moving from the spot. He stood there for a moment, eyes closed, can in hand. "Okay," he said quietly. "That's better." The ranger leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, looking at him with the particular expression of a man who had seen too many people come out of those woods in bad shape. "You know," he said, "at your age, kid, it's better to just find a job. Normal one. 9 to 5. Something with a roof." Henry lowered the Coke can slowly and looked at him. "I have a job," he said. "That pays you to walk into forests and come out looking like that?" Henry looked down at himself. Torn clothes, dirt in places dirt had no business being, hair that had given up entirely. "Technically," he said, "I didn't walk in voluntarily." The ranger stared at him. Henry took another sip of his Coke. "You got a shower anywhere in this station?" The ranger stared at him. "Kid, do you think this is some sort of all-inclusive place?" Henry opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked around the small ranger station. One desk, one phone, one ancient vending machine, and a folding chair that had seen better decades. "No," he said. "No, I do not." He finished the Coke, crushed the can slightly in his good hand, and dropped it in the bin by the door. "I'll wait outside." After a few hours, the sun dropped and the temperature went with it. Henry was sitting on the steps outside the ranger station, back against the post, half asleep, when headlights swept across the lot. Car pulled in. Sam climbed out, took one look at Henry, and stopped. "You look terrible," he said. "Thank you, Sam," Henry said, getting to his feet. "Really, that means a lot." Sam popped the trunk and grabbed a spare jacket, tossing it across. "Dean said you got teleported." "Dean said a lot of things from the comfort of wherever he currently is," Henry said, pulling the jacket on. "While I was eating tree bark in Wisconsin." Chapter 80, Bad Luck. The drive back was long. Henry had his eyes closed somewhere around the state line, not quite asleep, mind drifting to what Dean had actually gone to retrieve. A stolen object from John Winchester's old storage unit. He turned that over slowly, trying to place it. Then it clicked. Rabbit's foot. He kept his eyes closed. If he was remembering right, and he was pretty sure the thing was a genuine cursed object. Touch it and your luck turned almost supernaturally good. Every break going your way, everything falling into place. Sounded useful until you factored in the other half. Lose it and the luck flipped. Bad at first, then worse, then you were dead within days. No exceptions. If Dean had touched it, that meant he currently had the luck of a man standing on a landmine. Henry opened one eye and looked at Sam driving. And then there was Bella Talbot, the thieving cat, stealing cursed and supernatural objects and selling them to the highest bidder, the one who had hired the thugs in the first place to steal the rabbit's foot from the storage cell. Henry closed his eye again. Don't lose the rabbit's foot, Dean, he thought. We are already unlucky enough without adding a jinx to the team. They pulled into the diner parking lot around mid-afternoon. Sam was still finding a spot when Henry got out, pushed through the diner door, and stopped. Dean was sitting in the corner booth exactly where he said he'd be, covered in noodle soup. It was everywhere. His jacket, his shirt, his hair. A waitress was hovering over him with a stack of napkins, words pouring out of her in a continuous stream. "I am so sorry, I don't know what happened. My hand just slipped. I've never done that before. I am so sorry. Let me get you more napkins. I can have the chef make you a fresh bowl, on the house. I am really so sorry." Dean sat very still in the way a man sits when he has accepted his situation but has not made peace with it. Henry stood in the doorway and took it all in. He smiled. Dean's eyes cut straight to him across the diner. Henry walked over and slid into the seat across from Dean, folding his hands on the table. "So," Henry said, "good trip." "Don't," Dean said. "I didn't say anything. You were about to." The waitress was still going. "I can get you a towel, I am so sorry." Henry peeled his eyes away from her and looked back at Dean. "You lost it already, didn't you?" Dean said nothing. "We are so dead." They stepped outside into the afternoon sun. Sam took one look at Dean. Soup-stained jacket, 2 bandaged fingers, the expression of a man who had been through something. And his face did the thing it did when he already knew the answer but needed to hear it anyway. "Dean," Sam said slowly, "you didn't lose it, did you?" "I didn't lose it," Dean said. Because Bobby was very clear that thing is extremely dangerous. You lose it, the bad luck kicks in and it will kill you. Within days. Sam gestured at the jacket. You're already covered in soup. That was the waitress. Dean, you're a grown man. How do you lose something like that in under an hour? I didn't lose it, Sam. Then where is it? Sam looked him over. I'm looking, Dean. I don't see it. Where is the rabbit's foot? Dean shifted his weight slightly. I lent it, he said. Sam stared at him. You lent it? Yeah. To who? Dean's jaw moved for a second without producing any words. I don't know. Happy now, Sammy? He said, turning away. He stepped forward, straight onto a bottle. It rolled under his foot, throwing him off balance. He stumbled, tried to catch himself, failed, and went down flat on his back. Sam and Henry just stared. Dean had never looked this pathetic. Not a word. Sam already had his phone out. It rang twice. Yeah. Bobby, it's Sam. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Sam looked at Dean. Dean lost the rabbit's foot. The silence on the other end lasted exactly 1 second. He what? Dean winced from 3 feet away. Henry could hear Bobby clearly without the phone being on speaker. How does that idiot manage to? Does he not listen? Does anything I say go through that thick skull of his? I told him, Sam. I told him clear as day. You do not let that thing out of your hands. I didn't mean to, Dean said loudly toward the phone. He lost it. Bobby's voice went up a register. That boy has got to be the biggest idiot I have ever had the displeasure of. Does he not understand what happens now? The bad luck don't care. It's already started. And you tell that dunce that if he ends up dead behind a laundromat in 2 days, don't come crying to me because I warned him. Bobby, Sam said. How do we fix it? There was a long pause, the faint sound of pages turning on the other end. I'm looking into it, Bobby said, his voice settling into something more controlled. Until then, keep that dumbass somewhere safe. You two track it down, and once you've got it, call me. The line went dead, the irritation still clear in how quickly he hung up. So, Dean, can you tell me who took it? Sam said. Dean shifted uncomfortably. I don't know. It was crowded in there. Could have been anyone. Sam pinched the bridge of his nose. No need, Henry said. Sam and Dean both looked at him. He was already at the back of the Impala, trunk popped, pulling out his laptop. He set it on the edge of the trunk and flipped it open, then reached back in and grabbed his ghost hacker specs, sliding them on.